if you could ask our customers or listeners any one question, what would you ask?
What do you think is the most important stage of your routine?
I read that you want to leave a legacy for building disruptive brands. Obviously, you're trying to do that with Subtract.
Yeah.
Why is that a desire for you?
Page 24, are you sitting comfortably?
Was exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive. It fell off my chair. I was like, oh my God. Still early days for male skincare specifically.
What a way to start.
Yeah.
Straight in at the deep end. Hi everyone, welcome to Skincare and Beyond, your go-to podcast for everything skincare, hosted by the team at Face the Future. Today I'm happy to be joined by Ben Grace. He's the founder of sustainable skincare brand Subtract. Ben has over 20 years experience in the skincare industry and believes in the power of living a minimal, more environmentally conscious life, with Subtract's guiding principle being less is more. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. What a lovely introduction.
So obviously we're going to talk about Subtract, we're going to talk about the sustainability. But to start with, I think we should just go into a bit more about you, your background. Where did it all start for you?
Well, it all started really when I left uni. So I was at uni in Leeds, not far from here.
My home city.
There you are. And I'd done business and marketing there. And my first job out of uni, I moved back to London. My first job out of uni was for a marketing agency working on all the Beiersdorf brands. Nice. So Beiersdorf is a German company that own all the Nivea brands. So Nivea Body, Nivea Sun, Nivea Visage. But
what
also,
a way to start.
Yeah.
Straight in at the deep end.
And also Nivea for men. And being the only boy in the team, it was a long time ago, so things are a bit different then. But being the only boy in the team, I kind of spent a lot of time on Nivea for men. It was still early days for male skincare specifically. And so we did a lot of work around sampling and legitimizing the use of skincare products for men, really. That was my kind of first foray into kind of skincare, I guess.
We actually have this running joke that we still feel like guys are really hooked on Nivea men. It's like the thing that they always use.
Yeah, it is. But hopefully there are some other brands out there now that are doing things differently. And having kind of spent my time doing that, I then left there, worked for another agency on other consumer products businesses like PlayStation, Red Bull, Coca-Cola, people like that. One day, two guys walked into our office and they were looking for, my marketing agency did a lot of different things, PR, design, digital, all sorts of different things. And they were looking for a PR agency. And I was asked to come in with my experience in Nivea, to come in and upsell them the rest of the services. And they just moved back from the States. They were both from the UK, but they were launching a men's skincare brand called Bulldog. They were still raising money. They were waiting to hear from, either Boots or Sainsbury's or somebody like that. And I guess I was slightly frustrated in that working for a marketing agency, I really felt that you only really see a small piece of the pie in terms of what it really takes to build a consumer products business and a brand.
You don't see the nitty gritty bit.
No, and you see the marketing side of it, but you don't see the kind of formulation, the supply chain, the logistics, the finance, everything. I find the whole setup like just incredibly interesting. And so when they came in to see us, I went home that night and I woke my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I woke her up in the middle of the night and said, "Look, I'm gonna call them tomorrow and just see if I can join them." So I called them, I met them, we had a chat about it. And then ultimately I joined them just before we launched in June 2007, ages ago. Absolutely.
Where did that come from? You think that just thought, where that drive to want to do it, where did it come from?
I don't know really. These sort of things have always happened to me in my life where I just feel like I hit this point where I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I suppose I've always found myself in a fortunate enough situation where I've had the freedom to make those choices. And that was one of those times. So yes, I joined them as marketing director, but realistically there was only three of us in the business for the first 2 or 3 years. So we were doing everything that I wanted to learn about.
You were the director, the manager.
Yeah, we're figuring out how many boxes to get on a pallet, but also figuring out, which fragrance to go with for the original range or the sensitive range or whatever. And also, I think importantly, we were doing something very different in the space. And that's what I really love, and what I really get behind is just when you feel that you're doing something that's meaningful in the space and bringing something new and different to people. And that's where my passion, I guess, really lies.
Yeah, so it feels like you like to follow your intuition. Like, that's really important to you.
I do. Yeah, I'm reading
in all areas of life. Or?
I think my wife would disagree and say that I think about things a lot, but I think just in certain situations, sometimes you just know, and that's when I really just go for it. But that's not always the case. It just depends on,
It's so important to do that, though, isn't it? In those moments.
I think in those moments, go with it. Definitely.
So why skincare? Was it just something that you fell into in terms of that? Do you have kind of an interest in it from a younger age, or...?
No, so I think, being totally honest with you, not from a younger age. My interest in it started, so I think my passion sort of developed over time. My interest started when I started working on the Beiersdorf brands. I had to learn about it. And then I guess, it became a career when I joined Bulldog. And then when it became a real passion, really embedded in me, I think was when I founded Subtract, partly because it was my own thing, of course, and therefore naturally you're more passionate about it, you care about it a hell of a lot, but also because the mission of trying to create the highest performing skincare with the lowest environmental impact, like that is a mission that I truly believe in and that I'm very proud to kind of focus on. Yeah,
so I've read that you want to leave a legacy for building disruptive brands. Obviously you're trying to do that with Subtract.
Yeah.
Why is that a desire for you? Why do you think that's something that's incredibly important to you?
Yeah, I think it's less that I want to disrupt for the sake of disrupting. Arguably, the world at the moment, at this point, has enough moisturizers. Doesn't need another moisturizer. So unless you're going to create something meaningfully different that has a reason to exist, it's almost like don't bother. So there were two questions that I asked myself when I set out with Subtract, because obviously it's a very saturated industry. There's a lot of choice out there for people, which is great. But, for me, I asked myself, can I create a better product than something that's out there at the moment? And can I create a product that reduces the industry's impact on the environment? And I figured if the answer to either of those was no, then really I shouldn't be doing it because it's not needed. But I truly believed, when I started looking into it, exploring it more, I got more excited about it, started talking to formulators, manufacturing facilities, that kind of thing. And I was fortunate enough to meet a team who really believed in what I was doing and wanted to go that extra mile and create, the products that I had envisaged. And that's when I get really excited, when I feel that we're doing something really different and exciting that's not out there already and that can make a difference.
Yeah. So did you have some time off before you founded Subtract? Is that correct?
Yes. So what happened was I was at Bulldog for 10 years, and then we were fortunate enough to sell that business to a large US company. Then I was able, again, fortunate enough to take a step back and take a bit of time off and think about what I wanted to do next. So it wasn't that I knew immediately I wanted to launch a new skincare brand, but at the same time, the way I look at my time at Bulldog, it was kind of as close to being the founder of a business without being the founder of the business. So I still had that itch that I wanted to scratch, I think, in terms of creating something that I could truly say was my own. So then I took some time off, like you say, spent it with my family. I wasn't earning at the time, so I was naturally kind of spending less. I'm quite frugal anyway. I don't like waste. And that's when I started to think about this less is more ethos. So the idea that if you strip away everything you don't need in your life, you're more able to love and value what you've made a conscious choice to keep. And so I started thinking about that, started thinking about less is more. And that's where the idea that less is more then became Subtract. And I started to think, well, look at the industry and think about, well, if you applied this less is more ethos to the beauty industry, what kind of brand would you create? What kind of products would you create? And it was clear to me that as a generation, we're waking up, we're all making small conscious choices that cumulatively can make a big difference to the environment. We're choosing, whether it's vegan leather trainers or how we carry our water or our shopping or our coffee or whatever it might be. But when you look at prestige beauty specifically, a lot of these brands I felt were slow to sit up and take notice.
Yeah.
and there wasn't really something on offer that could tackle the biggest environmental challenges that we face as an industry.
Big challenge to tackle.
So in many ways, that's not because they're bad people, it's just because they're large organizations that can't just reverse out of packaging practices and manufacturing principles that they've been wed to for so long. So really, I feel quite privileged at the point at which I was, sitting down to really think about, if I'm going to launch a skincare brand, what's it going to be? I had full visibility of, the challenges that we were facing. Yeah. And I identified kind of 3 key challenges. The first being the plastic problem. I won't spend too much time on that. Suffice to say, the industry produces 20 billion units of plastic packaging every year. Much of that, even if it is recyclable, isn't recycled. It's incinerated. It ends up in landfill, oceans.
There's not a lot of education around it either in terms of the recycling of the products.
No, and it's tricky because as the packaging, I'd say, over the last decade has become more intricate and complicated with new pumps and blah, blah, blah. So the recycling challenge becomes greater because you have to break down the packaging, etc. So that's a real challenge. And then the second one is water waste. So 844 million people around the world lack access to clean, safe water. And yet a traditional moisturizer or cleanser can be anything up to 80% water content. So that's water we don't need to use in our products, water we don't need to charge people for, and water that essentially can dilute the efficacy and potency of the formulation. So that was the other challenge. And then finally, a reliance on palm oil. So palm oil is kind of a victim of its own success, if you like. It's in everything from food to skincare. That's because you get a very high yield of palm oil from a relatively small amount of land. And so everyone's dived in on it, and it's also very versatile, so you can use it in lots of different ways, which is why it's in everything. But it's also been strongly linked to deforestation and climate change and threatening habitats and all this bad stuff. So for me, I was like, if I can avoid that altogether, I will. So it was tackling those 3 problems. I was like, can I tackle those 3 problems, and how do I tackle those 3 problems?
I can just imagine you in bed at night, exactly. Like, how am I going to do this?
And create incredible products, because I think it always comes back to product first, because people buy products to do a job. It doesn't matter how ethically, environmentally friendly minded you are. Ultimately, you're not going to buy something that doesn't do the job.
And I think skincare is a lot about self-care now. It is that ritualistic time within the day where you can use the products and it really uplifts you and it makes you feel good. Absolutely. And I think that was part of it. It was like, how do you create this whole experience that not only does right by the planet, but that the products are just incredible, almost so that you can create a spa-like environment in your own home and really, at the end of the day, use it to change your state of mind, to really, I think, as well as, the performance of the products themselves and the formulations, you want to create something beautiful that looks incredible on your bathroom shelf. Just the array of colours that you have is so pretty. Thank you. So I've worked really hard on the aesthetic as well. When I was starting out, I was doing lots of research with people who I thought might be interested in buying the products, and all I had to show them was a graphic of or a design of what the products might look like. And everyone was like, I really love it, but where am I going to put these things when I'm not using them? And then I was like, So it just reminds me of, when you have you go to grandma's house and there's the soap in the sink and it's all a bit mushy.
Exactly. So then I'm like, right. So it became very clear that we needed to create a set of accessories for each product. So for the wash off products, they come with these dishes made from diatomite, which is a form of fossilized algae that is porous. So it sucks excess water away from the bar, and it's also antibacterial and mold resistant. So
how did you find that ingredient?
Just research, just lots and lots of research at the start. And then also the leave-on products, so the moisturizers, serums, balms, etc., come with a bamboo pot with a kind of swivel lid, as you can see. And and obviously bamboo is a very sustainable kind of source of wood. So
and so lovely when you're traveling, just to throw that in.
Great for traveling.
And it has the little magnetic. That's so clever.
Exactly. Thank you.
So can you tell me a bit more about the solid skincare concept then? How is it formulated? How do you make sure that the results are the same as like your typical moisturizer?
The starting off point for me was to to formulate a cleanser and a moisturizer. So I hadn't, if I'm honest, thought that far beyond getting those two products right at the time. And I figured, you know, they're the bookends of anyone's meaningful skincare routine. So if you're using skincare, you're using one or both of those products. I would
and
bet.
sunscreen, I'd say, but I'm hoping that's to come at some
Right, okay. And so I figured if I can get those right in a solid state and get great reviews and feedback and everything, then I can think about building, you know, raising money, building the range out, getting into retailers, etc., etc. The whole journey has meant finding people who really believe in what I'm doing, because you need people who will go the extra mile, who will really believe in the ethos and what it's all about and understand it as well. And I was fortunate enough to meet a formulator who really did believe in it. They formulated the products. We met with a manufacturer who similarly, you know, solid products aren't something that any manufacturer in the UK can do.
You must have come across a lot of like closed doors on your journey to that.
Exactly. But then then there was a lot of back and forth, because what the formulator had formulated didn't necessarily work in a kind of she could create it in her lab, but then to manufacture it at scale wasn't possible. So then we had to tweak the formulations. There was a bit of back and forth. So with the cleanser, it's a coconut-based cleanser with a geranium, rose and tonka bean fragrance, which is amazing. But the coconut-based means it's not... So to be clear, these products, none of them are soap. So none of them are drying on the skin. None of them are high in alkali content. They're very skin-friendly pH levels, etc. So we formulated the cleanser. That was fairly straightforward.
And is the palm oil, the coconut in replace of the...
Yes, so that works in replace of the palm oil, as well as doing other things. Obviously, it's got the added benefit of being moisturising and everything else. So then the trickier one to formulate out of the two was the moisturising facial balm, just because, as you can imagine, the way it works is you rub it between dry hands, you apply it to a dry face, it absorbs into the skin. So it's very important that it was really moisturising, but also that it wasn't really greasy and just sat on the skin, that it absorbed in and did a really good job. So there was a lot of going back and forth with that to make sure the payoff was just right. We got that right. The number one ingredient in that product is squalane, so incredible humectant.
Amazing ingredient.
And incredible ingredient. And then the same fragrance. And so we launched those two products. The feedback was amazing. And then I started getting excited. And deciding, well, what can we do next?
Well, that's the bit where you're like, oh my God, this is actually working. Like, I'm getting great positive feedback from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a grant from Innovate UK, which is kind of a government grant scheme. I've probably explained that incorrectly, but something like that. And that funded the development of the next two products. And one of those was the Rejuvenating Night Balm, which has got vitamin A in, which is green active retinoid.
So impressive that you've managed to get vitamin A there.
So I wanted to get vitamin A and vitamin C into our products. I think they are two gold standard actives in our space. They're proven to work. But the question was how, they're very tricky to work with in terms of stability. So how could I do that in a solid state product? Green active retinoid was something that I'd researched, my formulator agreed might work because it is more stable, but also not just the fact that it's more stable, it is also an incredible ingredient in itself. So green active retinoid binds directly with the retinoid receptors in the skin without the need for a metabolic breakdown. So what that means is it's the metabolic breakdown that can cause the skin irritation with traditional retinol.
Yeah.
So actually, green active retinoid, you're far less prone to irritation.
Yeah, which can occur quite often.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually a great product for people starting out with vitamin A.
Yeah.
And then we use some vitamin E in there, which is an antioxidant to avoid oxidation. And there's squalane in there as well. Again, so that was an incredible product, got great reviews again. And it was something that was so new and so different. Everybody wanted to try it. So Estée Lalonde wanted to try it, various
we worked
influencers.
With Estée.
Right, yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. And various other influencers, but also journalists, they all wanted to try this new product. So that was really good. And then we got on to, and then I started, pushing the boundaries even more and thinking about vitamin C. And vitamin C is even more volatile than vitamin A. So getting that right was trickier. We found a oil-soluble vitamin C derivative. Most vitamin C derivatives that are used in skincare are water soluble. Now, because our products are waterless, that obviously wouldn't work. So we found an oil-soluble vitamin C derivative that could work in a solid state. Because it was oil-soluble, it was much less prone to stability issues. And again, with vitamin E and various other ingredients, we were able to formulate this product, which is now one of our best sellers without a doubt, and has won numerous awards and things like that. And I think what was important there, going back to the product again, with the night balm and with the vitamin C booster, is that they really performed. So the two ingredients that we use that I've just spoken about, they've all been sort of gone through robust clinical trials to prove that they, whether it's even skin tone or reduce fine lines and wrinkles or help the skin glow, whatever it might be. But then you've got to think about, well, that's great for the ingredient itself, but does that work in our products and our formulations when it's mixed with all the other ingredients? So then we also with any product like that, we also do user trials with over 100 consumers who can...
Yeah.
Or people, I hate calling them consumers. We also, they do, use the product over 4 weeks, and then you validate your claims that way. So anything that we claim.
I want this job.
How
loads of brands
it
obviously do
is so
this.
exciting.
Like, how do you get
honestly,
this
it's great. And then, so we did the user trials, which then validates all the claims. So then we started with those products, and then we've kind of gone from there, really.
And how, with the bar, so the retinoid, the night bar?
Rejuvenating night bar.
Night bar.
Yeah.
How long does that last you in terms of like relating to like a general serum, I guess? Like, how does it compare in terms of...
So typically our products last around twice as long as a traditional format.
Right.
So in the case of the night balm, it's about 8 weeks. In the case of the vitamin C, it's about 10 weeks. I mean, obviously it depends on how much of the other product you've got that you're comparing it to, but broadly speaking, is about twice as long. So that means you get great value for money as well.
Yeah.
That's really how long the products last.
So Ben, I've just seen a book on the table. Can you explain why you brought it today?
I can. So this book is by a lady called Beth Kempton, and it's called Wabi Sabi, Japanese Wisdom for a Perfectly Imperfect Life. When I'd had the idea around Subtract, I think I may have had the brand name at the time, and I was noodling on this sort of less is more ethos, and I went back and saw my old bosses at one of the marketing agencies I worked for. And at the time, two of the clients that they had was Muji and Uniqlo. And so I was telling them all about my idea, hoping that they'd invest in the business, which they did. I was telling them all about this less is more ethos, that I wanted to create solid state products to tackle these issues, etc. And also telling them about how my life had changed, when I'd taken a step back, simplified my life. And one of them said, "This sounds a lot like Wabi Sabi." And I was like, "What's Wabi Sabi?" And he's like, "Oh, it's this kind of Japanese ethos. You should read up on it." So after that meeting, I trotted off to Waterstones and I bought this book. And so I'm reading the book, right? And still trying to figure out exactly what the brand stands for and, everything else. And then on page 24, are you sitting comfortably?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to read you a passage from the book. So it reads, "Less stuff, more soul, less hustle, more ease, less chaos, more calm, less mass consumption, more unique creation, less complexity, more clarity, less judgment, more forgiveness, less bravado, more truth, less resistance, more resilience, less control, more surrender, less head, more heart."
Wow.
So then I fell off my chair. I was like, oh my God, that's absolutely everything that I want to say about my brand. That's how I want to articulate it.
Couldn't use it as a tagline for Subtract.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Right. So not quite. It's a bit long for a tagline. But I messaged Beth on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
And just said, "You don't know me. I'm launching a new skincare brand. This is what it stands for. I've just read your amazing book. Can I use your words on my packaging?" And
so I was nearly there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and Beth said yes. She checked with her publisher, and then she said yes. And so when you open up the carton of any of our products, you'll find that passage in there, because I think it's really beautiful and articulates what we're trying to say. And then Wabi Sabi in general, firstly, great book, but also Wabi Sabi in general is just a really interesting topic and covers so many different things, from meditation to forest bathing to tea rituals, and also has a view on the world in terms of how, as things age and particularly things that you belong, the longer you keep them and the more they go on a journey with you, the more valuable and beautiful they become. So it's just an incredible ethos. So so that's what the book's all about.
I mean, I just love that holistic side of it as well. Like obviously
absolutely.
With lockdown, that must have been before lockdown though, that you had this minimal life era.
It was before lockdown, but interestingly, as I think you're about to say, is that it almost got imposed on everybody during lockdown, didn't it?
Yeah, you just did it a bit before us.
Yeah, exactly.
You just did part 2 at lockdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think obviously the eco-friendly element is incredible, but to have that holistic approach to the brand as well is so important, because you're right, we do need to slow down a little bit more and kind of appreciate what we have and have that minimal life that isn't full of your thoughts and things. And I do believe that that's super important. So
yeah, good.
I will give it a read.
You should. It's amazing.
Perfect. And then just off the back of that, why did you choose the name Subtract? And obviously the spelling of it as well. Yes,
the spelling of it. So the name Subtract obviously comes from this less is more ethos. But a story I don't think I've ever told is that the business was...
exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive. The business was going to be called Substance. The business is called Substance. The business is called Substance Group, but the brand is called Subtract. There was a chap in Germany who has a makeup brand called Substance. So it turned out I couldn't use it after all. But I guess the reason it was going to be called Substance is because it was all about the product and what was in it or what wasn't in it, as the case may be. And then that evolved into Subtract with the less is more ethos, and then removing the vowels from the word subtract was the kind of logical conclusion, and has also made it a lot of fun telling people my email address.
Selling it out.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, so start again, SB. So that's really why it's called Subtract. And it seems to get really well received.
So obviously you discussed the formulation and the ingredients.
Yeah.
What 3 ingredients would you like to formulate into Subtract products?
So I think...
Or what can you tell us?
So I think there's a few things there. I think for me, if I rewound 4 years when I started Subtract and thought about, the options that were available to us in terms of formulation, they were fairly limited, particularly because I'd made the decision to be palm-free. That cuts out a lot of ingredients as well, because they often contain palm-derived elements to them, etc. So many people recognise the challenges and want to address them that actually there's, significant increase in the development of an innovation of ingredients that you can use in a solid state that will deliver incredible benefits. So that's the first thing to say, and that makes my life a lot easier, obviously, because it means there's more options to create great products. So I think obviously niacinamide is one ingredient that we're looking to use in one of our formulations that will be coming out in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, I think.
And many benefits.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going back to the vitamin A and the vitamin C, it was about picking those ingredients that really are the gold standard of active skincare. And it makes sense to use those ingredients and deliver on those. So that's one. And then I think for me, it's, different ingredients will present themselves to me, but really I think it's more about the product that I'd want to launch rather than the specific ingredient that I want to use within that product. So SPF is one that I would love to do. SPF is really difficult to do within our framework because, in inverted commas, environmentally friendly SPF would typically use zinc oxide, which often leaves like a grey or white cast on the skin. Arguably doesn't perform as a lot of people would like it to perform. But on the flip side, chemical SPFs aren't great for the environment. So it is tricky. I'm like catch-22, but I'm waiting for the right formulation. I'm constantly asked for it, and
I believe in you. Then
yeah. But in the meantime, I just wear a sun hat.
Yes,
and stay out in the sun. But yeah, exactly. But so that would be another one, and then a solid fragrances would be really cool. So I want to do that. And there was one other, but I can't can't remember it now off the top of my head. No.
Never mind. I guess, like you said, you'll follow your intuition with it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then finally, our community is obviously really important to us at Face the Future. If there is one thing you could ask our audience, what would it be?
Ooh. If there was one thing.
Putting you on the spot a little bit.
I think it would be trying something new that can deliver, versus whatever skincare brand that you're using at the moment. Ask yourself whether that's worthwhile making that change, in the hope that it really will deliver and be more environmentally friendly, and therefore you subtract.
Love that.
That's not really a question, but anyway, that's all I think. Okay,
to ponder, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think obviously we all use skincare to like treat skin concerns and things like that. But can we get something else out of it as well?
Exactly.
Like, can it make us feel better that we're doing something good for the world? Like,
there's another sort of phrase that I really love, which is "nothing changes if nothing changes." So it's almost like, it's the world's not going to change unless we actually start doing things differently. And yes, a lot of those changes, I think, will come, for the broader industry, will come from the government and extended producer responsibility and things like that. But, ultimately, we're the people using the products, we're the people making the choice. And it's worth thinking about your choices,
Absolutely.
I think. And there's so many incredible brands out there who are doing something different and better. It's worth giving them a go.
Yeah, it takes the people to drive it though, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, that's everything. Thank you, Ben, for joining
Amazing.
us today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to learn more about Subtract. And thank you to you guys for listening. We'll see you next time for more skincare and beyond.
We can talk about scalp all day long. Are you ready?
Like the radar was sort of watching what I was doing. I was like, well, what would he say if I just left it like that?
Hair is such a big part of our identity, so it can be quite an embarrassing subject. No one really knows until they're actually in it, like what they're set out for. I was just a bit shocked, to be honest.
My reaction was like, whoa, we've just had a load of stress.
It was just quite traumatizing. Oh my goodness, where to even begin?